Welcome to Tokyo. Okay, I know this doesn't look like Tokyo, but I promise you this is still technically Tokyo. Anyways, we're out here today to look at this. This is the 2020 Mazda 2, and I'm going to explain why it's one of the best cars to drive around Japan's capital. Okay, if you didn't already know, Tokyo has very narrow-ass roads and everything's jammed very close together. So having a small car is a lot easier on your life. And as we can see today, we have a small car. Of course, if a car is too small, it kind of ruins the point. But as you can see, the back seats are kind of decent for an average size Asian guy like me. Even with a bunch of crap in the back, it's not too bad. However, if you play center for a basketball team, it's probably not a good idea to get in here. While the back can feel a little tight if you're on the taller end, the front is actually very spacious. It doesn't feel like a small car in here. There's in fact a lot of headroom, plenty of space for your legs, and if you happen to be really tall, you'll be fine driving this car, but then the person behind you probably doesn't have any legroom anymore. Okay, this isn't the biggest trunk in its class, and if you fold the seats down, they don't fold completely flat. However, there's plenty of space to fit a wannabe car reviewer like me, and there's just this random lip here that makes it a bit harder to get in and out of, but as you can see, the trunk is actually quite spacious. This is as basic as a Mazda 2 can get. Well, except for the optional navigation screen, and it costs around 1.5 million yen or about 15,000 US dollars. In fact, there's no tachometer on it, which I think is stupid, but fortunately, if you get a better spec'd car, you will get one where that Mazda 2 thing is on the left. So in my opinion, this car looks pretty good. It has these nice swooping lines that make it look more sporty and youthful rather than practical. It definitely doesn't look like a $15,000 car. In addition to that, we are in Tokyo where a lot of people want to look at least a bit wealthy, and this car doesn't make you look that poor, even if you are, and even if it's not your car and it's a rental car. So this particular car comes with steel wheels and plastic hubcaps, which might not seem like a good thing, but if you've ever driven around the narrow back roads of Tokyo, there's plenty of chances to scuff your precious alloy wheels. So in a sense, this is a good thing because it removes a lot of the stress when driving. The interior of this car is all right. We have these hard-wearing cloth seats, a reasonable looking dash. I mean, there's some hard plastics and everything, but everything does feel quite durable and it doesn't look that bad. There's this optional navigation system here which juts out of the dashboard. And originally I didn't like it and I wish it was integrated into the dashboard and it might have a cleaner look. I also originally thought that this would kind of block your line of sight, but actually I like it now because as you're driving, when you glance over to look at it, you don't have to take your eyes off the road as much. Okay, even though this is the base Mazda 2, it does come standard with a lot of safety features. There's cross-lane traffic alerts, there's blind spot monitoring, and there's a lot of these random features that kind of beep at you for no reason sometimes, so I'm not sure I entirely like them. And if all else fails, there's a raft of airbags, but I hope I don't crash. This car only has a 1.5 liter 110 horsepower engine, which sounds kind of pathetic, and in a way it is. However, the good news is it means it gets excellent fuel economy. In the city, it also has stop-start features, And overall, the Skyactiv engine is very fuel efficient. If you're careful, you can easily get into the mid 40s for miles per gallon. And if you're not so careful, you can still easily hit the high 30s. And let's be honest, that's excellent. This car has a harder suspension because it wants to have a sportier feel, but I have noticed around town it rides pretty well, like a lot better than I thought it would. In addition to that, for the 2020 Mazda 2, Mazda really started focusing on making the car a bit quieter and more refined, and it is. Compared to older Demio models, this car is much quieter. It does ride noticeably better. It's obviously not luxury car levels, but this is a $15,000 car, and it's fantastic. So around town, in normal mode, the steering's very light. This car has a tight turn circle, and as said before, it's a small car, so it gets through Tokyo traffic quite easily, and in the tight back roads, it manages to get around pretty well. And then once you get onto these roads and put it into sport mode, it really comes alive. The throttle response is very good, and the steering kind of weights up a bit, and the feel's better, and it's a bit sharper, and it starts to feel more like a sports car, more like an actual Mazda instead of like a city car, and it's been really fun to drive. So especially going around these tight, twisty corners, there's plenty of steering feel through the electric rack. Originally, I was disappointed that Mazda stopped using hydraulic steering, but this car's been fantastic. It's obviously not quite as strong in feel as a car with hydraulic steering, but I find it perfectly acceptable. So one thing to note about this incredibly tight road is obviously you need a manual transmission to have fun. But since this is Tokyo, if you do live in the city, a manual transmission's a terrible idea. I love manual, but yeah, tight turns, lots of traffic, short distances between stoplights. It's a lot of rowing through gears, a lot of wear and tear on the clutch. So an automatic is the better way to go. The good news is that the automatic transmission in this car has a manual mode that's very good. This is the first time I haven't complained about having an automatic transmission in a car in the mountains. The shifts are very quick, and it even blips the throttle on a downshift. So if we get through a tight bend and we need to drop down a gear, it's immediate. You can get on the power and get around the corner and really wring out the engine. As I mentioned earlier, this car only has 110 horsepower, and it's not that much. When you get onto an actual open stretch of road, it's not that quick. But in typical Mazda fashion, the engine loves to rev, and if you're in the right gear, the car at least feels quick. And in my opinion, that's enough. Tokyo has really low speed limits. Most of the roads cap out at 40 to 50 kilometers per hour. You can translate that into miles per hour and you'll just notice it's really slow. So this car has more than enough power to get you up to speed. In addition, on these twisty mountain roads, it's not advisable to go that fast, otherwise you're going to crash out. This car handles very well. The chassis, it feels solid. It doesn't feel like it's rolling around in the corners, but this car is on eco tires, and you can start to feel that the grip of the tires doesn't match how capable the chassis is, which is a bit of a shame, but I guess if you own this car, you can go ahead, switch out the tires, maybe get rid of the steel wheels for some better alloys, and this car will handle much better. So in conclusion, I think the Mazda 2 is the perfect car for Tokyo. It's small, practical, economical, cheap to run, and it's easy to drive around the hectic streets of Tokyo. In addition to that, if you're able to escape to the lovely mountain roads like here today, it's really good fun to drive. In fact, there's a bit of time left on the rental, so I think I'm gonna go bomb down that road a bit more.